But it's nice. Hello, broadcast. You know what they say, when
Hello.
the red ticker comes on, the show is on. We are going to give everyone out there in the universe, on social media, on YouTube, on Facebook, a second to join. We are going to give everyone out there in the universe. So as everyone joins, we will be here just waiting. Uh, we can see a tracker up in the window. We'll just continually introduce ourselves as anyone's logging in and coming on. I'll go first. My name is Dr. Levanani. As it says on the bottom of the ticker, I'm a medical director at Northcrest Medical Center, which is in Springfield, Tennessee, a little bit north of Nashville. So I drive about 35, 40 minutes to work. I'm also the Robertson County EMS director. There's my Twitter and my IG at the bottom. And I will now pass the mic to Dr. Winter so he can introduce himself.
Thank you, Dr. Nani. I'm Dr. Tari Winters. I am the Pediatric Residency Program Director at Goree Children's Hospital, which is in Morristown, New Jersey. I also have a couple of other titles, but the biggest ones that you need to just know is being a program director, which is one of the reasons why coming here today to speak with you all in regards of applying to residency, which should be coming up very soon for the both of us. And one thing that I want to share, and I'm going to share this multiple times with you, is don't forget this is very much bi-directional. The same way that you are going through this whole entire process, preparing yourself, getting ready for this cycle, so are programs. And so we go through this exact same type of nervous energy and trying to get everything, all of our ducks in a row. So this will be a great way for us to be able to share our experiences and to learn from one another. So looking forward to talking with you.
That is very true. I know the amount of Pepto Bismol goes up for every program director and people working on the residency side. So, again, for all those joining us, no one will ever say Levanani starts anything late. So, we're going to start on time now. Welcome to our first presentation in our road to residency. This is now done yearly. I'm going to stay at the onset. Yes, this is being recorded. And to anyone out there, one of the things Tour for Diversity loves to do is we love to answer questions in real time. So if you got a comment, post it out there. It should get to us. We should read it. If not, our wizards in the background will bring it to our forefront. Case in point, SK says hello. Hello, SK. We are here for you. Thank you again to our co-hosts, LMSA and SNMA, for helping us put this on. We know people everywhere always have questions, and we're here for you to answer these questions. This first presentation may seem very basic, but remember, if you mess up the basics, you already failed, right? So we're going to go over everything step by step. So for those who are just like, man, residency is coming up or ERAS is coming up, what am I supposed to be doing? This is what's going to help you get all of those things ready. And then as we go through our various topics, you'll see that there are other presentations that go along with this one, right? So this is essentials. Think of it as the basics. In 1 week, we got telling your story, fine tuning your personal statement and CV. All right. If you already have a perfect personal statement right now, you're lying to yourself. No, you don't. You need to get it edited and you need to make sure you come to that presentation so we can work with you. Even your CV, right? Understanding supplemental application. This is new. All right. Even if you go and find an attending right now, if they have not looked up supplementals in the last 2 or 3 years, they're not going to be able to give you any answers. So where can you find those answers? Here with us. All right. 9 days from now. And then specialty specific workshops are the week of the 21st. All right. Information is coming. We promise it'll be out there. I know a lot of people are like, what days are they going to be? What days are going to be? I can only tell you the EM one, but for right now, it's a secret. But it is coming. We are ready for you. There'll be even more program directors, assistant program directors, all types of people in specialties here to help LMSA, SNMA, and the T4D family. So the agenda for today, first and foremost, planning for fourth year. Yes, for most people, it started July, mid-July, but August is technically when all of you guys should be on the ground running. We're going to go over what is ERAS, what is NRMP, go over the match calendar. Dr. Winters can take the baton. And as a program director, again, people out there, as a program director, make sure to work with you guys on personal statements, talking about why they're important, what goes into a good letter of rec, and what goes into a good virtual interviewing. The one thing we're seeing right now in the industry is virtual interviewing is not moving anywhere. It seems to be the new norm, the new standard. So let's get used to it. And he will help walk you guys through that. So, fourth year, right? Let's go over everything in depth. Scheduling step 2. Everyone should have done that by now. I know step 2 is the new hotness now that step 1 is no longer scored. It's pass fail. So everybody out there is getting their new fancy words, or it's fancy word to me, in there dedicated and making sure they're studying hard for step 2. Make sure you do that. If you've not scheduled it, get it done. You really want to have it taken well before September. So if you haven't scheduled it now, you need to get on it so you can take it in September and get it done. First red stop is there's no more CS. I used to like CS. I was one of like the 10 people in all of medicine who enjoyed it. I felt like you get to watch people practice medicine versus answering questions, but it's dead. Visiting electives and sub-Is. Now, we use the word sub-Is. Some programs just call them visiting electives. It's a place for you to go. If you're a fourth year and you're rotating not at your home institution, treat it like a sub-I. All right. It's a sub internship. You're not the intern. You're not carrying all 5 pagers, but you should be following the intern. You should have 1 and 2 patients that are your patients that you get to hold, follow up on the labs, and give feedback to the team. You want everyone to know, man, this person will be a really good intern. That's the feeling you want to give off. And you know you really clutched your sub-I when you get that stellar letter recommendation from wherever you are. That should be your main goal, right? Get a second goal. Number 1 goal, get an interview from wherever you sub-I'd. Number 2 goal, get a good letter recommendation. And if they don't give you an interview and you were out there working, it's kind of shady, but them's the breaks in the game. Interviews, obviously, we'll talk about in a bit. You have to apply to programs to send you interviews. They're coming up. They will be all virtual, so get ready to participate in that. A lot of people wonder, is it too late to do research? No, not really, but just make sure it's meaningful, especially if you're going to try to put it on your application to get out there and show off. It can be hard to find some about now because we're already in that new stream, but you can always jump on a project, right? People always need coders, typers, reviewers. You can figure something out, especially in your fourth year when you have this large amount of free time. Now's the time to get on it. But don't start any new research in like April and then try to put on an application now and be like, oh, look, we're ready to go in April. It's not really going to hit. Also, letter recommendation, we'll talk about that more coming up. Very important. Start asking and feeling people out right now. Like, hey, do you write letters? Are your letters good? Are they great? What do you think about me? And of course, the reason we're bringing this up early in your fourth year, meeting with chairs and mentors is very helpful, especially those chairs that you're going to try to run up on and get a letter written for you in September or October. They don't really know you. And if they don't know you by now, you should really try to get to know them. So now is the time to be showing up at those M&Ms at their office whenever you can, meeting, greeting, getting on their good side. And for all of your mentors that are in your court, make sure you continue to work with them to help get you letters and point you down the right path. If you don't have a good mentor, right? We're the Tour for Diversity. We're all mentors. We highly recommend that you get one. Someone's been down this path before. It should not be new for you. All right. So the ERAS, or the Electronic Residency Application Service, it's run by the AAMC. You should see this nice banner over here. Everyone hopefully should have seen this purple colored website by now. Once you apply for My ERAS, you should receive a token and you should be able to register for the program. You have to fill out the entire application. And on that application is where you submit your USMLE scores. You submit your requests for letter of recommendations. And people can then upload it to the AAMC website. And then you select programs to apply it to. Obviously, this all comes with costs, unfortunately. But as you do that, you can add as many programs as you can afford and then submit the program. There is a dean's workstation specifically for your deans or people who are acting as your deans at your school. Will there submit the medical school performance evaluation transcripts, aka the dean's letter. This shouldn't be a clear letter recommendation. It should be a very streamed review of what you've done over your medical career at that school. It may be very generic, so they'll only hit the highlights. Some schools let you see your dean's letter, not many. It should be kind of just, again, a streamlined thing of your evaluation and transcripts. Yep, go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, actually, for your medical school performance evaluation, even though you were saying that most schools shouldn't, you'll find that majority of schools do have a process for you to be able to review what's on within your MSPE, and that's highly important because part of that process also includes your clerkship scores and comments. So when you're going through your core clerkships in your third year, most of you probably have already finished this time period. This is a time now where you get a chance to take a look and step back. You should have, and I'm hoping that you did, got a chance every time that you would get an evaluation, be able to review that evaluation, see if there was anything that was conflicting or something that you had any specific concerns or wanted to highlight at all, to be able to make sure that that's being stated clear, because that will come across in that area. There's usually in your evaluations two parts. One part of the evaluation that goes on to your MSPE, and the other part that's viewed as what we typically call constructive criticism or constructive feedback. And that part typically is withheld from being a part of that MSPE. So sometimes those constructive comments or feedback can kind of sneak their way onto them. So you always want to double check and make sure.
And it'll be helpful, right? If you're applying to PEDS and the PEDS section says you were terrible, you may want to be able to speak to that. So, hey, if your school has it, reach out, like Dr. Winter said, read them early, and try to get a good grasp on them. Then you have your letter recommendation portals, and your PD workstation, where program directors can, obviously, as it says, go in and review things, and that's how it connects to your application. All right. So the match, we've all heard about it, but who runs it? What is it? When does it happen? Like, what is this? So the match is run by NRMP, the National Residency Matching Program. Also, before I go here, I'm gonna take a step back. For all the people out there sweating the new OBGYN news about we're not using ERAS anymore, that's next year. All right. So everyone applying to OB this year, you're still going to use ERAS. You're still going to have ERAS connected to your NRMP, but we will have a whole new section, I guess, next year for the OBGYNs and what we can figure out about this, but that's next year. All right. So the match is kind of structured and run by the NRMP, which is a whole different system. All right. You're going to hear say this 20 times. You registering for ERAS does not register you for NRMP, which means you will not be in the match. All right, I'm going to say it again for the first time in the road to residency and not the last time. You registering for ERAS does not register you for NRMP, which means you will not be in the match. So they're two separate things. The match works by you submitting a ranking list that goes into an algorithm. So AI has been here well before pictures got done. Ooh, I'm going to pause because I see a question. I have a question regarding the ERAS education portion. I transferred to another school because I was approved for a loan for that school. A PD asked me if I failed, if that's why I went to 2 medical schools. Is this a common line of thought for PDs when they see 2 medical schools? Also, would you recommend just not mentioning it in the education part to avoid a confusion, since it's indicated in my transcript I transferred?
So first and foremost, no, please make sure you put that within your ERAS that you have constituted for medical schools. You definitely don't want to say, like, you will see that in my transcripts, because then I'll think you're hiding something. In regards of asking a question of if you had failed in a medical school, that's why you went to a different medical school. It's not necessarily a common line of thought, but it is a question that will come up. I would strongly encourage you to, when you get that question, not to view it as a ding or a red mark or a check. It's just mostly for our knowledge to be able to understand what's going on. If anything, I look at that as being like, hey, at least they read my application and looking into it, versus it being more of a, oh, they misunderstood what I was trying to say. Because if that's the case, just to give you a frame of reference, and not trying to steal Dr. Nani's thunder,
Cook.
Which is, if you think about it, we have, so from our program, I have a medium-sized residency program, which means that I have 36 total residents, have 12 per year. Out of the 12 spots that I have for residents for each year, for each residency class, I'll have roughly about 2,000, 2,200 applications for those 12 spots. If you can imagine, it's quite difficult to be able to whittle down that amount of applications and something that's manageable for me to be able to interview, to be able to consider for these 12 spots. I usually whittle it down to about roughly close to about 200, a little bit, maybe more, 200 applicants that I'll choose to interview. So during that time period, there will be periods where we just actually just start to pretty much find a way to be able to say, like, okay, well, we will have quote unquote cutoffs. And when I say cutoffs, I don't want people to think that I mean based off of your USMLE or COMLEX score or based off of your transcripts, because a lot of times those are usually not as hard, fast cutoffs. But there are other things that can be considered. One thing particular would be if somebody graduated from medical school 10 years ago, that may be a cutoff. With that being said, if someone is looking at your application to say, like, hey, I'm trying to figure out what are the two schools from, that's a good thing. That means that you made the cutoffs of where somebody wouldn't even consider your application. They'll just kind of go through filters. So SK, if that makes sense, view it as the sense of you're just trying to explain to one because it may have not come across an application in the quick review that they had to do, because we can't do a deep dive review of all 2,200 applications, if that makes sense. Just using that for an example.
Yeah. And to reiterate, don't hide things. They'll be found. So just be upfront about it. So that proves, y'all, that we answer questions when you put them out there. Thank you, SK. Glad that made sense. So you get matched after you submit your list for the algorithm, matches students by rank of the program, then by program rank of the student. You must match at the place you like most, which also wants you most. Like, that's the way it goes. And I'll explain that more using the quote at the bottom. To make the matching algorithm work best for you, create your rank list in the order of your true preferences, not how you think you'll match. Because what happens is they'll go down the list and say, all right, Love's number one program, number one. Do they like Love? So then they're going to go to the programs list and look through all their applicants. If I'm in a program like Dr. Winters and he has 12 slots and I'm number 11 on his 12 slots and I rank them number one, automatic match because he put a spot for me. Now, if he ranks me number 46 and I name him number one, if 45 people say no, boom, I match. But all 45 people have to not rank him first. So it will go in the order of your preferences first and then go down the list to figure that out. Again, there's some drawings, some great videos you can watch on the website, but rank them in your order first, not where you think you're going to match. Because even if you rank someone dead last on your list, if they ranked you number one and you rank them dead last and you get to your bottom choice, boom, you've matched. So it doesn't matter where you put them. Who's in the NRMP? Just about everybody. Every program kind of uses it because everyone goes through the match. There are some exclusions, right? And those programs tend to be in the early match as well. So you have opto. I have a very special friend who may be watching this right now who loves ophthalmology. You have urology, you have the military, and public health and general preventive medicine also does some early matches. And what we mean by the early match is their match dates are actually well ahead of the typical March one that happens. So I think military is almost like October or November or something like that. And then urology is before the new year typically. So all of those residents are just all happy and gallivanting before we even get to match day. So for all of those students, you should be on a much more accelerated timeline if you want to look into those specialties. And we can always talk about those offline. So here's a general calendar for those in the general match, not in the early match. And we put all these arrows like this to make sure that you're looking at your screen like we know SK is. So June 7th, ERAS application opens. That just means you can submit, get your tokens, and do all those things. All right, a lot of time passes. By September 6th, 1 month from now, why we do the road to residency so early ERAS submission starts, right? That's when you can like push everything out there and say, hey, programs, here's how I want you, or here's what I think about you. I want to apply to you. Fast forward to those dates, September 15th, NRMP registration opens. So now you can register to start applying to rank lists once you receive interviews. Here's a big date that Dr. Winters is going to love. Programs may view your ERAS applications September 27th. Now, somebody out there is thinking, all right, Dr. Nani said it opens on the 6th, but they can't submit the 27th. I'm just going to submit the 26th. Don't do that. I mean, you can do that if you want to, but just imagine it gets downloaded like the mail. All right. So do you want to be on the bottom with the 26 people, or the person who submitted on day one and it's the first application that Dr. Winters is going to look at with fresh eyes and coffee in his hand, versus the last few he's in the rummage through because he needs to make his deadlines? All right. Submit early. So after all these applications go to ERAS, you'll start getting your interviews through NRMP that you registered for on the 15th. And then your ranking list opens on the 1st, right? So the ranking list opens. You can, of course, start organizing your things in your own head, on your own phone, on your own computer. But now NRMP lets you rank them on their own on the 1st. You have 27 days to play with it. Go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, move it around, talk to people, whatever you want. By the 28th, you must certify that this is your list. This is how I want it. I'm not going to change it. And the certification also mandates that you abide by the rules of the match. That's why you do that. So please do not think because you rank them, they're good. You got to hit that certify. All right. Then all the festivities start. Match week, March 11th, with match day being March 15th. And the reason we want to say match week is there's some soap that some people have to do. That starts on the 11th. That's a whole different lecture that we hope no one has to go through, but somebody will have to go through it. And we will be there for you at that time as well. And then we all celebrate match day, March 15th, right? Match day super early, and it will be 15 days ahead of AMEC. So get ready for that. All right, moving forward. So again, here's the important dates and non-arrow forms now that we got your attention. June 7th, ERAS opens. Start your application. September 15th again, NRMP opens. Those are your two open dates. But September 6th, ERAS applications can be sent to residency programs. Do it early. Do it early. January 31st, NRMP applicant standard registration deadline. So you have to, again, make sure you register to do it. February 1st, then the ranking list opens for you to start making your rank list. Then the 28th, you certify your rank list. On the bottom here, you can see what's kind of happening in those subset of months, right? So July through September, we anticipate you should be out there doing those sub-Is, doing those rotations, getting that work done. Then, as you see, they've read all your applications in September. They've sent you requests by November or October, and the interviews are November through January. Yes, some people interview in October. That's possible. These are getting just general bars of what's going on at this time. In fact, some interviews can bleed over to like February 1st in some places. So just throw that out there. It's weird, but it bleeds over. And then electives, again, where you're chilling, kind of just waiting to see what happens, February through April, and then graduation again. So those are your important timelines and dates. More important dates again, March 11th, match week begins, but 11th is when the SOAP opens. So that whole list comes out of the programs that didn't match. And by the way, on behalf of Dr. Winters and all the all the program directors out there, programs that don't fill get it just as sad as med students that don't match. You know, they all want to fill. They all feel they're the greatest. So they hurt just as much as you do, but they too must pick themselves up and apply to the SOAP. And I see a question. Sorry, another question. Nope, don't apologize. You got questions that we're here for. When would you recommend sending letters of interest to programs after submitting the application? Don't want to look impatient or no other programs. Ooh. Do you want to go first? You can go first.
Oh, yeah, please don't. So what I mean by this is the following. One, and we'll kind of talk about this a little bit afterwards. So part of me wants to say, like, let's hold off just so we can finish on, because I don't want to.
Go ahead. Do it. Just do it.
All right. So part of this is that when you are, after you submit your application, what will then happen is we need time to review all these applications. Typically, we try to hold ourselves in depending on your specialty, each specialty kind of sets their own internal rules that we ask all of the programs to abide by. For pediatrics, for instance, we will say that, you know, no one should give out interview invitations for a period of about 1.5 to 2 weeks. And we say that to allow for all the programs, whether big or small, to be able to then allow for all of the candidates to not feel as pressured to pick dates for interviews, because of the fact that you have a limited amount of time. Remember, you're still students, you're still going through this process. The whole reason why I bring this up is that a lot of times students get very nervous if they don't hear. It's September 28th, and they're like, why didn't I hear from the program? They don't like me, they don't want me, and I really want them, so maybe I should send information to them. Well, it just may be that we didn't get to your application yet, or it may just be that that specialty is holding off. And we typically don't publicize those dates and say like, "Hey, everybody, we decided to do this date." The other thing that comes into play too is that we have tiers. Most programs have tier systems. So you may be in the second tier of interviews. So we send out a batch of interviews. Typically for my program, for instance, we may send out of the 200 plus interviews that we have available, we may send out 125 interview dates, like invitations right away. And then based off of that, we will send out a second tier, and then we may send out a third tier, just depending on what typically may happen. Or what tends to happen for the past 8 years has been we will send out the first tier, send out part of the second tier, and then we start to create a waiting list. And you may be on a waiting list. In that regard, I usually tell people around December, usually December 1st, is around the time that most programs have pretty much made up who they're interviewing, or if you're on a waiting list, and they should be sending you a rejection letter at that point in particular time, or sending you a letter just saying like, "Hey, we declined." With that being said, that will allow for you to be able to have a little bit of time or understanding of when you should send a letter. But it's a very busy time as well. So if you do send a letter, just know you may not get a rapid response back. It may take a little bit of time.
Yes, and along those lines, I'll say it like this because he has to say it in the nice way. Those letters are thirsty moves, and so don't do the thirsty move until you're actually thirsty. And so the programs can recognize that too. That's why they invented all the signaling and all those other things to try to really ping people for you. But you know, you only get 5 or 6 depending on your specialty. So most of them know when they get that letter, it's like, oh, you know, they need to tell me something or they must really need this. So I usually tell the mentees is don't get thirsty until about Thanksgiving, like Dr. Winter said, because if you haven't gotten one, you must be on the wait list. Send them that you really want it. But I got to stop because my president asked me a question. My president said regarding ERAS submission, so it helps to submit closer to the 6th. I thought the month period was for submission was to prevent system overload and that programs get all the applicants at once. But I actually list, you are correct, right? That's what it's for. And so no one blows up. Everyone gets it at once. There's all the time. But like any system, it has to download it in a certain order, right? It's not going to alphabetize it or score unless they put a screen on it. I'm going to let Dr. Winter say that. Go ahead.
So actually, it's not. So we do get it all in one swoop. The reason why we always say please submit everything ahead of time is because I can tell you so clearly, stuff get lost all of the time or don't get uploaded. It happened to me during my process several over a decade ago. I hate to say, my gosh, I'm not old. But no, it happened to me where some of my stuff didn't get there, and I had everything in on time. It just happens that way. So we always say get all of your stuff in, so you don't have to worry about having anything not in on time. The longer that you wait, it's just inevitable. There is going to be something that will happen. It will be Murphy's Law. And I'm not trying to burn bread on nobody by saying, like, oh, bad things going to happen if you don't get it in, because we also understand stuff happens. But trust me, the sooner that you get it in, it does help. But we do get it all in one swoop. But at the same time, if we don't have something in at that particular time, that's really a point where you could have lost some traction. And the reason why is, again, if I have 2,200 applications, and somebody's letter didn't come in, or someone's transcript or their score didn't come in, or something along those lines, I may put that person on hold while I'm looking at these other applications, and you may wind up being in that second, third, or tier or wait list.
Can I ask you a question, Dr. Winters?
Of
Just
course.
take us behind the screen for the people who are truly watching, like, SK and our president, future Dr. Mize. When you see those applications, do you just see them with a download date, or do you see a download and submit date? So let's say I submit an application on the 6th, you download it on the 26th. Do you just see downloaded on the 26th, or do you see the day I submitted it?
I don't see any of it. I don't see a date that you submitted.
Okay.
So you could have submitted it in particular whenever had. So yes, Abby, just to be clear, the applications, I do not see an order of when you submitted it. It just comes all in one swoop to all of us. The reason why we push so hard for you to get the materials in on time as early as possible is to prevent any of those things that can go awry with your application. That's the main reason why.
So how do you organize your applications? I know there's more stuff coming out, but this
Oh,
is
yeah.
very important. How
I
do
can
you
tell
organize?
you. So September 27th hits, boom. First thing that happens is my program admin and myself, we set parameters ahead of time. So we set parameters. There's parameters that are set that we will go through. Like I said, one of the things that I go through typically when I'm looking at applications, and what most of my colleagues, and by the way, one of the things I didn't share with you all is I sit on the board for the Association of Pediatric Program Directors. So out of all the pediatric program directors in the entire country, I'm one of the national leaders for this. So we talk about this often. So this is not just me, it's most of us, what we do. We tend to set parameters in place, and those parameters that we set in place is typically things such as, did this person graduate? For us, we use a cutoff of about roughly 3 years. Has it been 3 years since they graduated? Why 3 years since they graduated is because of the fact that if someone has been out of school for a period of time and have not had a chance to do any clinical work, the rigors of doing an internship can be very daunting, even if they have excellent scores and they have had excellent letters. I don't know if they could jump in on July 1st and say, like, okay, let's go. And that has happened in the past to people. So that's one of the things. When we set those parameters and we're looking at certain things, it may be one of the parameters that we definitely put in is all the information present. So did they have all of their coursework that has been done? There are certain schools, say for instance, certain international medical schools that do not require physics as an undergrad. So if you didn't do physics, you can't get a medical license in the state of New Jersey. True story. So I can't take someone who has that. So all of these things I'm looking at, I set parameters for, and that starts to weigh out a lot of people. Afterwards, then we go through our initial pre-screen where we may look at certain things such as, is there somebody who is rotated with us? We look at signaling. So we look to see if someone signaled the program. It's not for us we don't look at that as saying like, oh yeah, that's a definite guarantee, but it is something that make us say like, let's consider this person. I'm very vocal about it that tells you I truly wholeheartedly believe in diversifying the face of medicine. So anyone who is underrepresented in medicine automatically in my program gets screened by me. It doesn't, they are not filtered out by any stretch of imagination. I don't care if you failed everything 3 times. I still look at you because of the fact that I have to make sure that I'm considering all of those things into place. So with that being said, these are certain filters that we look at, that we go through and we determine. It does get tricky because, like I said before, you literally have only so much time that you can dedicate. I have only so many faculty members that I can get to interview. There's only so many dates that I can interview. I like to go on vacation and go to sleep. Uh, so, with that being said, all of those things come into play, and then I consider who I'm going to pick for the first tier, second tier, and third tier, and that's how we go through it. SK did ask about is being a medical assistant, count as clinical experience. Um, and what I always tell people is as long as you're doing something clinically and can be able to demonstrate how that has kept your clinical skills abreast, I think it's always helpful to put that out there. It doesn't mean that it may be that may be the be all it all, but it can help.
Real quick, and then I'll move on. Veronica, Abby, and SK all submitted an application to you. They made it all through their screening. They all signaled you. They are all students of color. What makes you click on Veronica's application before Abby's or before SK's? Or is it just random how they're in there?
It's just random how they're in there. And so, because there is literally, we may go through about 1,000 applications between myself, my two associate program directors, and my program admin. We'll all split up that list, and then we'll kind of go through everyone. We'll take down, jot down notes, and afterwards, I go through all of them myself to look and see, and then we come up with a list. They usually will have their recommendations. Dr. Nani's wife is also an associate program director, so she knows he knows that she does this. I I take my APD's um, opinions very seriously. I take my program amends opinions very seriously. So if they have someone that they're like, yeah, I really think this person is great, we talk about it. We make sure we go through this process, and then afterwards, we determine who those people would be. Now, I can tell you right now, there have been people who I put on the waiting list, or I have said, and this happens to all program directors. I'll tell you this: somebody was like, could they? We go hold off on them for a little bit, and literally, I have a colleague, like I'll have Dr. Nali call me and say like, hey, I know Veronica and she's really interested in your program. I have literally gone through, grabbed the application, like, I want to make a spot just for Veronica because Dr. Nani told me about her.
Yep. All right, y'all. So get them in early. They'll get in the eyes early. In my opinion, computer systems will download things in a certain way, but get them in early. And like Dr. Winter said, I know I was on someone's wait list, and then I know I was also chief resident, so it don't matter. All right, to help give people some boost, and then I can make sure Dr. Winters wraps up in 15 minutes. I'm gonna wrap up in 2 minutes. I want everyone to look here. If it's small, I apologize. I stole it from the Match website. You can go to the same thing. All right. The last year, there were 42,952 applicants for 40,375 spots. Somebody got to do so. Like, someone's not going to match. It's the way it works. I apologize. I wish I could put money in the federal system to get us more spots. This is the way it works. But for those who are wondering, how can I guarantee myself? Remember, active applicants matched to a PG1 spot is 81%. All right. 93% were filled on that. So that means 7% still had to go through the SOAP again. It's okay. PGY1 match results increased in match applicants since 2022. There's an increase in MDs that were seniors, U.S. citizens that were IMGs, USDO seniors, non-U.S. citizen IMGs. They keep track of all of these things just so we're all on the same page and we all know what to do. And in the end, there's also 1,170 more certified positions, which was up, 183 more programs participating, and 571 more positions in primary care. Very, very, very important. All right. On the next slide, I want to show this. It's, again, really tiny. It's on the website. Number of active applicants and percent match to PGY1 positions. You can look here. If you went to USMD school and you were a senior, 93% chance of matching. All right. So go ahead and take a step back. Graduates of USMD schools, it's 48%, and this hurts, But the reason why this is such a lower number is, like Dr. Winter said, USMD graduates can be 3 years to 20 years. So your number gets kind of polluted. So it's harder to tease out someone who was out 1 year versus 2 years. But I'm just presenting the numbers. This is what we need to do for everyone. You went to a USDO school, 91.6% chance of matching. Foreign trained physicians is 60, right? That's why everyone says kind of like, hey, IMGs, you got to work harder, you got to grind harder. It's been a fact since the beginning of time. Everyone knows it. And then again, overall applicants, 81%. So I kind of want to push that out there so everyone knows where they stand and how much grinding they need to do the next couple of months. Again, all of this data, you can go straight to the Match website. You can see I copied and screenshotted it. As you can see, the bar right here is still right here. It's 132 pages worth of data, right? This is all in there. Don't get yourself twisted up. You can go find your specialty specific things and figure out how you need to match some of these numbers. It's there. Find a mentor, go through it. All right, Dr. Winters, all.
All right, I'm going to go through this part really quickly just because, one, we touch on a lot of these things and other ones of our sorry, of our seminars. I'm just kind of going through them like that. All right, quick thing. With personal statements, here's the crux of the matter. Personal statements, will they make or break your application? No. Will they hurt your application? Absolutely. So what do I mean by that is, tell your story. This is an opportunity for you to really be able to not only share with us about your passions of that specialty, and listen when I say the passions of that specialty, not the passions of medicine. We obviously know that you really wanted to be a doctor because you are going to be one at this particular point in time. I want to know about why the field of that specific field that you're going into. The other thing I really want to know is, can you communicate effectively? Can you allow yourself to be able to be concise, to be accurate, but also to allow for your point to come across in a meaningful way without having to seem like you're speaking gibberish? All right. Why I say it can hurt is because if I see errors, if I see that someone really didn't pay attention or made just really bad decisions, it will stand out not a good way. There has been a very few amount of personal statements that I've ever had that made me say, oh my God, I really, 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 really want to take this person in. But there has been numerous personal statements that made me say, I want to learn more about this person. And that, my friend, is what you want. You want me to really want to know more about you, because I can tell you right now, the whole purpose of that interview is only for me to figure out is what you presented on paper really matching up in quote unquote virtual person. That makes sense. All right, next one. All right, letters of recommendation. I will tell you this now. Not every faculty member will write a good letter of recommendation. Letters of recommendation, or how to write a letter, is such a skill that is not passed on innately. It is something that is learned. And just because someone has a fancy title does not mean that they are going to write you the best letter of recommendation. The best letters of recommendation that I've come across is letters that that person knows so much about you. When they can speak in volumes about you and really be able to highlight who you are as an individual, that is what really helps shines. It's really helpful to have a letter from someone who is a part of the program that you want to go to. But it also is helpful, say, for instance, if you didn't get a chance to get a letter and you did a sub-internship or a visiting elective after you submitted your application, for that person to speak on your behalf or even send an email. So don't always assume that just because, oh my God, I got a chance to rotate later at this program, that all is lost. Even after we've interviewed you and did everything, if you came back and rotated, we do talk. It's a very small community. The other thing that's very important to remember too is it's a small community regardless, especially when you think about academic medicine. So I can tell you right now, some of my closest colleagues are individuals that trained in places that a lot of people that are completely opposite of my program and vice versa. And we share and talk quite a bit. The one thing that I will say is when you do ask for a letter of recommendation, you do want to ask in a polite way, can you write me a strong letter of recommendation? Do you feel as if you can write me that strong letter? But you also want to make sure that you are providing them with some insight as well. One of the things that I really love when students do is when they ask me for a letter and they say, by the way, here's my CV, here's my personal statement. Um, Usually they attach a photo if it's been a while since I saw them and they send it me by email because I may or may not remember their faces, but I mean their names, but I definitely remember their faces. But then also they'll send me like a little anecdote of, hey, we got a chance to work together on this particular patient or this specific thing that we went through, and you had highlighted how you really enjoyed the way that I presented on this, blah 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 blah. That right there is gold because I can literally put that in their letter. One, it makes them shine, but then two, it also helps me to be able to write a letter that's personal because I don't want to write a bad letter. I want to make sure that you are doing well in this process. I have investment in you. Okay, next slide. When you're doing virtual interviews, so let me tell you, a lot of times people are like, oh God, we're doing virtual interviews again. Here's the rationale behind why all of the leaders within graduate medical education, why we all got together and said, we really do want to continue on virtual interviews. And it's really based off of the fact that it has allowed for us to have not only a holistic, but also a very um, inclusive process. A lot of times I can tell you, and Dr. Nani has, me and him both went through this process where you had to travel for interviews. It limited the number of interviews that you can do. It also cost a lot of money to be able to do these. We have now been able to have people go to places where they may have not been able to go, limited only solely based off of the resources that they have and not necessarily based off of their potential or based off of the desire for that program or for that candidate to want to go and interview at that program. We also have people who can now interview in different time zones. They can interview while they're still on rotations and not have to take much time off. So so it's so much more beneficial than it is harmful. Yes, it does inhibit the ability for you to be able to really get a chance to see that place in real life and be able to kind of get a grasp of that culture per se during the interview day. But I can tell you like this, even if you are going to that place in person for that one day, for a day even of interviews are just like Tinder profiles. You can hide a lot of stuff during that one day. So if you're really interested in the program, you really want to make sure that you're diving in deeper than just that one specific instance. SK, yes, it is true that if you do waive your rights to see the letter, we do hold more value to that for the recommendation letters, just so you know. Next slide.
Hold on a second, pause. I want y'all to
Yes.
know I've been in medicine for a long time, graduated med school 2012, and I just found that out right now. Thank you, Dr. Winters. Thank you, SK. I never knew that. I never knew. I thought it
It
was just a
does.
box you clicked. Okay.
No, it does hold more weight because then it's like, okay, well, you don't know what this person's going to say about you.
Mm.
But I can tell you, most of us who are letter writers who have been trained in letter writing, um, I typically will for my letter writers or for my candidates, I tend to show them the letter
Okay. Okay. All
for
right.
just blind carbon copy them on it. Especially if it's my residents, because I do a lot of fellowship letters for my residents. All right, so preparing, remember to practice your responses, especially if you know that there are things that are going to be asked of you during the interview. If there is certain unique things about yourself. When I say unique things, some people may call them blemishes. I call them unique things and things that just come up about yourself. Practice what you're going to say, but also make sure that you are being yourself, your true, authentic self. Take a moment to stop and to think about what you want to say. I have always struggled with sometimes having pressured speech where my mind works way faster than my mouth want to work. So I want to say so many different things, and they're all fleeting, and then I have to want to try to get them out. And I do one of those moments, and I have to slow myself down, give myself a minute to get my thoughts together, and then be able to speak. And so sometimes I may speak slower. I may even ask, and I've had people ask me, like, can you give me a moment just to think about that answer? And I love when I see that, because one, it tells me that they are not only bold, but they are also self-aware. And that's one thing that I cannot teach someone is self-awareness when it comes to medicine, because there are going to be times where you need to be self-aware of your emotions. You need to be self-aware of your biases. There are so many things that you have to be self-aware about. So with that being said, that's another thing. Moving forward. All right, general approach. Obviously, professionalism from start to finish. That start means literally the first part of the day. My program administrator can make or break you. If my program administrator does not like you, or if you were mean to them, the program coordinator, my administrative assistant, anyone, if you have been nasty or mean to them, to my residents, anyone, that's an automatic nix. The good thing about us who are part of the URM community is we know this, because most of the times we're the ones who speak to the folks that most people tend to ignore or don't speak to, and that serves us so well. We can share so many stories about how we have been saved by, whether it was the environmental service worker, the cafeteria workers, security guards, etc. But with that being said, keep that same approach, that same way that you were taught to speak. Keep that. Keep your facial expressions. Know that if you need to take a break, sometimes it makes sense, especially if you get a break, turn that camera off and just allow yourself to be off for a second, to adjust yourself in your seat. It's okay. You can still do those things. Next slide.
SK had a question. I was in an interview and didn't understand the meaning of a word in the question that was asked. Does it look bad to ask? Can you tell me what this word means? I was scared and didn't ask.
You know what? I don't. I'm a firm believer. If you don't understand the question, it's okay to clarify the question. If
Yes.
you do, you and I both know there'll be times
Yes.
where you won't know something about. I share this all the time with my residents and with my medical students.
Mm-hmm.
When I tell people to look it up, I look it up myself. If somebody asks me a question and they're like, Dr. Winters, blah, 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 and I'm like, you know what? That's a good question. I don't know. Let's look that up together. I do that intentionally because I want to make sure that they always understand it's okay not to know everything.
And you need to know what you're agreeing to, right? Like, what if you're in a pediatric interview and someone's like, do you believe in the stigmata in newborns? And you're like, yeah, the stigmata is a sign of the cross. You believe babies are born with holes in their hands and holes in their feet? Be very, very sure you understand the question. And sometimes they may slip up. Oh, I meant stigmus or nystagmus, not stigmata. Like, so just, it's okay to ask. Just make sure you ask in a way like, could you clarify that? Or I didn't understand you. Blame it on the internet. Say like you cut out for a little bit, whatever you got to do, but ask to clarify.
Just be truthful.
Exactly. I know.
Yep. Manage your time like we're trying to do right now. You don't want to rush, but at the same time, you also don't want to prolong it, because I can tell you right now, I've had situations like that where somebody has prolonged and they have given only a yes or no question to an open-ended question. And I can tell you right now, it's painful. It is very painful to sit on a two-way conversation for 30 minutes and you're the only one that's talking and someone else is not talking or are not giving you responses. That's painful. And that made me not choose those people. All right. Next. Interview space. You want to make sure when you think about your interview space that it is that it is lighted well, that you always want to make sure that the light source is behind the camera and not in front of the camera. All right. You also want to make sure that you are in a comfortable seat because you're going to be in that seat all day long. I'm a firm believer. Most people don't know this is a secret. Don't tell anybody, like I care. But I don't wear shoes typically when I'm interviewing because I need some form of relaxing because I'm usually all day long in front of a camera and I'm just like, my shoes go flop. But I have slippers underneath my desk. But that's my thing. However, I always tell people, which is the next slide, which is when when you're interviewing, you don't want to hold on to a camera or have your, as you see right now, my legs. I'm 6'6", people, by the way. So my seat is all the way low on my desk in my house. So when I'm there, I don't want to try to hit my camera because it makes you seasick. And I've had that happen before. With that being said, also understand things happen and we understand. What I mean by things happen is there will be some form or some way that your computer out of all days or the biggest interview will not work. The camera will not come on. The light will not come on. This will happen. Your internet will go down. The power will go out. Always have a backup plan. And that backup plan just may be calling. There has been times where I literally had to tell people, like, you know what, it's okay. Here's my office number. Just call me on your cell phone and we'll finish this out on the phone. That's okay. Usually the program should give you a backup plan when you first come on. They say like, hey, here's our number in case anything happens, you can give us a call. But if they don't, it's okay to ask. If anything should happen by chance that the internet goes out or there's some function with the hardware, is there a backup plan? Is there a number that I can call? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Next one, which we just talked about. Make sure you check all those things, but it may be the case. It never fails. All right. Next one is positioning. You want to make sure that the camera is eye level. You don't want somebody to be looking underneath your nose, especially if you got boogers and all other kind of stuff in your nose. Also, one of the things that I normally do, which I didn't do today because I didn't get a chance for my contacts in enough time, but I don't wear my glasses just because if you can see the light just reflecting, and so you can't see my eyes. But if I take my glasses off, then you can see my eyes better and have conversation. I typically will look at the camera and not look at myself. And what I'll do is I'll position my window for myself, because let's face it, you're most likely checking out yourself the majority of the time that you're talking to someone. I put it right underneath the camera so then I can still see myself in my periphery, but I'm still looking at the camera, so it looks like I'm facing you. That's usually what we try to do. All right, next one. Yep, we just talked about that part, and it's 2 minutes left. Keep going. It's one thing I want to just point, and then we'll stop. This part, please, y'all, wear bottoms. Please wear bottoms. You do not know how many times I have caught people who have not had on bottoms when they were interviewing. I kid you not. I don't mind a lot of things. I don't mind a dog or a cat walking past. I don't mind babies. We talk about this. I do an implicit bias training with my residents, with my faculty, with everyone to say everybody does not have a free space to be able to conduct interviews. A lot of times people will share space, whether that's sharing space with your partner, whether that's sharing space with, you have to be in the hospital because you don't have a place to go, any of those type of things. Your equipment may not be up to date, so we allow for those things. But there are certain things that are preventable, i.e., that also one of the things that can also be preventable too is, remember, some stuff are see-through through the camera. So just make sure you take a look at it, because I don't tend to take anyone down, but I also know that there has been situations and times where you may see people's furnishings underneath their clothing because it's light and the light reflects off of it. It's just one of those things that you may just want to do. All right. With that being said, I think we should stop because it's 9 o'clock right now.
Early on time, on time's late. Late's unacceptable. That's all I gotta
Exactly.
say.
Perfect. All right. So next steps. Oh, we're right on time, aren't we?
I told you.
Oh, look at that. So
Yeah.
next step is we're on the schedule. You want to make sure that you're planning through your application calendar. You also want to make sure you attend those specialty panels. Like Dr. Nani has said, I know that they'll be coming up shortly. Then we want to make sure you schedule your mock interview so you can get that practice in. Making sure that you have your CV and your personal statement reviewed and go over again. Make sure to attend virtual residency fairs, open houses if they do have them. It's usually helpful for us to be able to know. And then also we want to make sure that you complete the post-program survey because it does give us back feedback so we can know how to make sure this is a better resource and tool for you and for others in the future. With that being said, here is the specialty panels without the dates.
Yeah,
The
so
dates
what will be
up.
without the dates. The dates are coming. And I'm not saying if you want to do EM, you should keep August 23rd open. But if you want to do EM and you're free August 23rd, I'm just saying. On that note, so we're going to take this off the stream. We're going to leave ourselves up just for any other questions. Thank you, SK. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, my president, feature Dr. Miles. Like, I really appreciate all those comments and keeping us interactive because this is what we like to do. Like Dr. Winter said, talking to yourself is hard. Other benefits, they tell broadcasters, always look at the light, look at the camera. That's how you should kind of do your interview. And I am team look good, feel good, act good. So I want an important interview, full suit. I don't care. Jacket, tie, pants, because it'll keep you sitting up a little bit straighter. When you're in your sweats, you're way more relaxed. So you want to be straight up. So wear your fly outfit, and we're here for you. Thank you, Tosin, for being here with us. I'm glad we were informative. Like I said, I learned something new. So I'm gonna start telling people when they ask me to write letters, hey, check that box that you didn't see it, but you might see it. So great questions. Will the next session also be at 8 p.m. Eastern? I want to say I believe so. That is the one that is on the 15th. Let me just double check my calendar. I believe so, but just check all social media. Sometimes our calendars change, so just be really active. Follow Tour for Diversity at SNMA, at LMSA on Twitter and everything. We will let you know. Or I see you're on YouTube, Enrique. Subscribe to SNMA's page and put on notifications so whenever they go live, you'll be notified.
And do we have the registration link for the CV and personal statement review?
That one is on, if you go to the SNMA IG page, it is in their link tree.
Okay.
It says students to sign up for Road to Diversity.
I think that was Quasi.
Huh? Yes, I think that was Quasi's question. Yes. Yep. Registration link is there. So right now it's on everyone's link tree. If you don't have IG, I am on Facebook or Tour for Diversity on Facebook. Send us a message. We'll get it to you. It may, we got people who monitor these streams all the time, so we will get you the info you need. So thank you all. Thank you all. Thank you all. To our wizards in the background, we appreciate it. I'm glad we were here for you. Come to our other sessions. Follow all of our feeds again and one last thing. I'm gonna put this out there. Every interview season, like Dr. Winter said, my wife is an APD for Vanderbilt Pediatrics. We eat dinner less because of the number of applications they have to eat. They have to go through. And I will say this right now. I love my wife, but I will gladly skip all the dinners for all you people out there to apply there and make her have to do the work because we want y'all to match. So don't be scared of program names or where they're located. Get out there, get it done. Let's all get you guys positions.
And don't forget, Goryeo Children's Hospital. Come look us up.
We are here for y'all. We got people in places. Yes, Vanderbilt. That's what we do. So on that note, an hour and 5 minutes, we will bid you guys adieu. Thank you.
Have a good one. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Drink my LaCroix.
And
we're still going because it says live, and I never stop until the camera goes off. That's what I was trained to do. So we're gonna keep going while our wizards in the background shut it down because right now it's recording. So I don't want y'all out there to think that we're gonna leave y'all hanging.